I want to start off first by talking about this guy here, Zohran Mandani. I think there's been a lot of controversy, but been a lot of excitement around his race and who he represents for a lot of people in this country. And I don't think it's just young people. I think it's people who feel disenfranchised. There were statistics out recently saying that New York has seen and borne the brunt of more income inequality in recent years than other cities.
It was an election that nobody thought was possible for him to get close, let alone trounce the former governor of New York. There was a coalition that was built that was not connected to establishment, left-leaning organizations. It kind of came out of nowhere. His volunteer base, his fundraising, all this stuff came out of nowhere. And it was the new grassroots. So he represents, tell me if these sound familiar.
Yeah.
Hope, change, okay?
I mean,
new idea, right? You know, a light during dark times, right?
Absolutely. I think what I've observed is that he's a candidate who comes out and says what he's for and not what he's against. He says what he's going to do, and implementation is one thing, but he's talking about the immediate needs of New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And I feel like also when it comes to this new form of media that he's been able to earn, you know, traditionally in Democratic circles and in any campaign, you have paid media, but I would say, shifted to earned media.
Yeah.
And what that means, I mean, he took his mic and lent his ear and listened to the owner of the halal cart.
Yeah.
He went first to people of color, people who are hurting, people who had voted for Trump because no one's listening to them.
Yep.
And then
Went to the Bronx.
to the Bronx and went to the hardest parts.
Yeah.
And he's speaking to the immediate needs of New Yorkers. So when I see Mamdani, I see somebody who said, I believe in free buses because so many low-income people and people of color use buses.
Yep.
And it's a big part of their paycheck. Transportation is very expensive. And then you also have him talking about let's freeze the rent. With Mamdani, he had a piece in The Nation, and he talked about democracy. And what does democracy mean? And I'm paraphrasing here, but
Sure.
he was kind of, to speak to his ethos, he was saying that we have democratic values, but if I'm not able to pay my rent, if I'm not able to support my kids, if I'm not able to get childcare for my family and my little ones, and education is at a grasp for so many people, then is this the system that I want? I think the election for a lot of Democrats was, we got to protect our democratic ideals. We got to protect what democracy is. I was reading Biden's outgoing message, and he talked about now an oligarchy is forming. It's already formed, right? It's here.
It's here.
And I feel that, you know, it's not a left or right conversation. It's really a top or down, bottom up conversation. But really, when you have such concentration of power and wealth at the top, and Americans' purchasing power, right? Not median income, but purchasing power has not grown in over 40 years in this country. And we're dealing with affordability in my own city of Seattle, but every city would say in the country. And then in America, I think healthcare is a unique problem. No other OECD developed country in this world pays as much as we do on healthcare. And I remember being in the White House in 2010 when the ACA passed. And I remember Ted Kennedy coming during his brain cancer diagnosis and voting for that, right? And ACA has now helped 24 million people get onto the marketplace. But with Trump's ugly bill, 17 million people will be out of health insurance. And so when I see someone like Zohran, I feel like he's the messenger. And he's a messenger talking about the issues that left and right aren't talking about as much. And we need to have a conversation around.
Well, he simplifies it down, right? What do you think about Zohran?
So I work a lot with young people. I run an amazing summer school program.
You want to talk about that? What that is, real quickly?
So I run a 10-week program in the summer called Action Academy, and it's literally like democracy summer school. Students zoom in from all over the world. It's an international program. We learn about what expands democracy and what suppresses it. We learn about political systems. We learn about voting rights, and they also learn about all these historical pieces that lead up to the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, last week was the 60th anniversary of. So it is not that old, guys, right? It's not that old. And so we put that into a perspective of what people had to do to vote. And also, you know, in the eyes of the young people, when they see Zohran, let's say, they look at, you know, we talk about representation is key, right? they look at him and say, he's not gray haired. You know, he's not somebody who's been here forever and a half. And therefore, there is representation that I see myself in because he is a lot younger. He represents a very much younger crowd. So part of what they always like,
The dark-skinned man with a funny name.
right? You know, but they're always like, it's like, I want to vote for somebody, but why do I always have to vote for somebody who's much older? Like, they don't look like me. They probably are so separated in my interests and my lifestyle and my day-to-day life. So you always, like, everyone says, like, you got to make the tough decision. And it's like, no, this is no longer a tough decision. So when we get that momentum or have at least a sparkle, then we have to capture that momentum. He is a sparkle right now, and we have to capture that momentum because, as you can see, and you were saying earlier, like he can go into streets and crowds and just be like, "Hey, what's up? How are you doing?" Versus like,
He can literally speak their language.
he can, but like instead of like, you know, instead of somebody having an entourage of like security, right? And then like you go to a
He's approachable.
right? Like you have to go to their elected officials' town hall. It's like so much of our political system right now is I have to go to them. Versus like, can you just come to us? And if you come to us and be in our spaces, the calculation of you meeting me and me meeting you is much easier to do.
Absolutely. Oh, I like that.
So the part I would say about Zohran is that some people, I think older generations believe that he was popular because he knew how to make funny videos on social media, right? And you see Cuomo, you know, his cringe videos where he's got the short sleeve button up shirt and he's helping a guy jump his car and he's doing all these things that Cuomo he's never done.
It's not authentic.
No.
It's not authentic.
And, you know,
No.
because younger people are digital natives, they sniff through that stuff.
Right.
They can tell.
Gen A, Gen Z sniff through
Yes.
BS like no other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming up with terms, like we call it performance activists. I mean, I just found out last week there's a new term called yaptivist.
Which is
Somebody who-
Yak.
Oh,
No,
Yaktivist.
they say yap because they're yappers.
Yapping or yakking? Oh, sorry.
yapping.
We had to ask a
Yapping.
Gen
I've
Zer.
never heard that.
Be like, is
Yaptivist.
it yak or yap?
You talk
So,
more
like,
than
you
you
talk more than you
get
yes.
more than you
Right,
deliver
so
or
we
show.
see that in somebody's like, you know, like I'm putting a black color on my profile, or like, you know, the Me Too movement was just like, you know, an icon of some sort, but like, are you out there in the streets?
Sure.
Are you flagging down your elected officials so that they are, you know, for the policies we voted them in?
Are you taking risk? Are you
taking
putting yourself
risk?
at
Are
risk?
you taking
Yes,
risks?
and the thing that's
Right.
the thing right now too is like what are the risks? So they can sniff out the low risk activism, and then people are starting to challenge each other to say, okay, you put a profile up, I'm going to mobilize you and make some phone calls, and then
Well, the thing I'd add to this, just to add to that point, is that people think that he's just a good social media user. And the reason why, I mean, he's native to digital, which young people are, right? And young people, this is another reason why you want young people in office, because they can communicate to the public in the way that is most salient to a certain generation of voters. It is not just his use of social media that has made him popular. It's his policies. It's also his actual policies, to your point.
Because he's a legislator in the New York State Assembly.
Right. To your point, it's not just left and right. He's talking about advocating for working class New Yorkers. His message appeals to working class Americans across the country. He's talking about holding wealthy and powerful people accountable, having them pay more taxes. Like this, these are hard policies that then resonate on social media because the policy first is the important piece. And I think that you see some people who just don't get it, or people who are backed by wealthy people who say, okay, we need to make Zohran videos. And it's like, it's not going to catch on because the policies don't appeal.
And that's the thing. It's you have to have a clear message of what you're for and not what you're against.
Sure.
And I think if we zoom to Seattle and King County, you know, we have a slew of progressive candidates who have just won this primary in almost like a landslide, I would say, right? In campaign terms. And so down the line, you know, you have people like Gurmai Zahalai, you have Erica Evans, and then Katie Wilson running for mayor. And I think if we zoom it into this conversation in the context of Seattle, rent is really high. It's one of the highest places to rent in the country, right? And that is
true for blue cities. True
for blue cities, but particularly Washington State, Seattle is a very, very expensive place. And when we talk about the momentum that we've seen here, and folks have said, oh yeah, this is the Mamdani effect is happening here. What do you think candidates need to do now in this next 3 months as they head towards a general? You know, what is the message that they need to have to appeal? Because I feel like we have people in office who are well-intentioned. Yeah. And I know Mayor Harrell is a great person inside. And I know he's delivered a lot for the city. But to his point, what is the government delivering for them now? And for the next 4 years, if they're elected as county executive or mayor, or what is it for them? Because they're not seeing the effects of what's happening in their daily lives.
So I think that there's an additional layer in Seattle. Also, shout out to Deion Foster.
Deion Foster, yes.
Shout out to Deion Foster. And then, of course, you know, Alexis. She's just killing it. What's unique about Seattle, on top of what you're talking about, so there's affordability, there's representation and power for younger generations.
Sure.
It doesn't even have to be as young as Gen Zers. You know, Gen Xers. You know, Gen Xers are just now getting power, and then millennials. Beyond all of that, though, is the reality that Seattle is a champion of further left policies. We are an example to the rest of the country.
What do you mean by further left? Because I feel people see further left as a radical, and I think a lot of people do see Seattle as radical left, but I feel like we need to talk about the issue and what makes Seattle progressive.
Well, so when I say further left than where the middle has moved. The middle has moved to the right. Let me just say that, right? So I talk about this sometimes, and some people don't understand it, but the Overton window, where, you know, what we think is in the realm of possibility is this like window to people of like this far left and this far right. And the middle is kind of where moderates and most independents like to live. Yeah. And what Trump has done is pull the window further to the right. Okay, he's pulled it further to the right. And so the middle now is in further to the right now. Right. And now the left seems like it's even crazier. But what I'm talking about as further left is democracy vouchers, right? Which allow regular citizens to donate money to candidates and allow for someone like Katie Wilson and Dion and other candidates kind of rise out of nowhere and not require them to have backing of wealthy donors and corporations, right? So you see Katie Wilson hitting her cap on democracy vouchers. Nowhere else in the country does that exist.
Correct. And she could not have had a fair shot at the election had she not had democracy vouchers.
Okay, so that's something that we have that other people don't have. Another thing we have, other cities, is, you know, we can vote by mail from anywhere.
I know. And
at any time.
We've had that luxury since my whole life, since I was 18.
So when I go and I frequent red states, and I go to Selma often because we do a lot of education down in Selma as a part of this. Like we do, we believe in education to action. So we bring people to knock on doors, but we motivate them by rooting our struggle in the struggle of the civil rights movement and the fight for voting rights. Now we're going to talk about that in a second. But when I start my speeches, sometimes I start with what voting is like in Seattle. And the looks on people's faces. I tell them, you get her ballot weeks in advance. So you can
at least 15 days in advance.
At least 15 days in advance. You can sit with your family and talk about it. You can bring your pamphlet to people and ask them what they, or your ballot to people and ask them what they think. You get a pamphlet. Right? You get a pamphlet that describes all of the things you're voting for and all the people you're voting for.
And like third-party organizations who actually do the vetting for you.
Yeah, and you can. There's all kinds of people locally who'll tell you who they think you should vote for.
Sure.
And then you can drop it in the mail wherever you are.
Yeah.
That is not.
That's unthinkable to so
even
many
imagine
people.
That. In Selma, Alabama, they can't imagine.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. Is people, when they point to policies where they want to improve their state, when their states that get a Democratic trifecta, right? Michigan is one that recently got one. Virginia's fighting to maybe
Washington
get that.
State has one, of course.
Washington State has it. When they look at like, okay, now that we have power, what are we going to do? They look here.
Yes.
And so Seattleites are used to being these protectors of what
they set the example. They have set the example in so many ways.
Yes.
Right.
And in 2021, we've pulled back on that. And I think that the people of Seattle, regardless of their age, regardless of their income, and regardless of where they are on the political spectrum, they have pride and they want to reclaim that example of the left and what we can be.
I love that.
And that is driving a lot of the vote.
I love that. And it's a good segue into, you know, I was down in Georgia for the last presidential election. Georgia has 159 counties. It is one of the toughest places to vote. We just had the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We are seeing nationally what's happening around redistricting, particularly right now in Texas. And when we come to that debate, like what does the Voting Rights Act mean today? And should we be fighting fire with fire? And then the larger question is, what's the precedent sets for democracy in our country? Because redistricting and gerrymandering, in the long run, it's not good for our country.
It's not, right?
And if we're doing this midterm for political purposes, I think this is the only time a president has actively asked a governor who has power to redistrict before a midterm, you know, and Democrats are guilty, Republicans guilty of gerrymandering all across this country. But we're setting a new precedent by a president directly interfering into this process to placate his voters because he just passed one of the most destructive bills. And he knows it's unpopular among those that voted for him, right? It's the betrayal bill for a reason. And so if you can talk about a little bit about what does the Voting Rights Act mean? And, you know, Coretta Scott King said this, civil rights have to be fought and won in every generation.
Every generation.
So we're at another point where we have to be fighting for those rights. And so can you just talk about a little about Common Power's work around this?
Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of set some context here. So 1965, a group of marchers out of Selma, Alabama, were fighting for the right to vote. And just the mere registration. Like, we just want to register to vote and then just have access to the ballot. Well, Bloody Sunday, 1965, March 7th, happened where a bunch of sheriffs and pretty much like citizens who self-deputized themselves went down there to beat on the marchers. So there's an infamous picture online where you have young John Lewis, who was like a junior at the time in college, and then a bunch of marchers that are crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, okay? And as soon as they crossed the bridge, they were met with the sheriffs, the police, and again, dogs, a bunch of stuff. And then these were like a series of marches that they're trying to protest just the right to vote. On that day, they were beaten a lot. And beyond the sheriffs, it was, again, like self-deputized citizens, right? Okay, so what happens? The president gets called in, a judge also comes in and allows the marchers to finally go to Montgomery. So in August 6th, 1965, the Voting Rights Act gets passed. Okay, so yay!
Because of the visibility,
the visibility of what happened to these nonviolent protesters, because they were met with violence. So everyone thought, okay, this is a win, right? Like, so now the Voting Rights Act is passed. A lot of Black communities, particularly in the South, you know, registered communities to vote. Like, great. So we got representation. We got people registered to vote. People were voting, right? Unfortunately, in 2013, Shelby versus Holder case gutted one section of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and that was the pre-clearance section, which meant that the former Southern states, the former Confederate states, who did have racial abuses of their voting election laws, had to get permission from the federal government.
Pre-clearance.
That's the pre-clearance. It says like, hey, I'm Mississippi. I'm going to change my voting law. Hey, Department of Justice, can you approve this? So there were a bunch of states, particularly in the South, that had to go through pre-clearance. Well, then the Shelby versus Holder case said, okay, this particular case came to the Supreme Court, and I think it was Justice Roberts, said, well, the formula that was used to do pre-clearance was an outdated formula. So Ruth RBG did a really great dissent on this, and it pretty much just said the calculation for the formula was outdated. So therefore, it was no longer valid. Well, then immediately after they came up with that ruling, there were 1,600 voter suppression laws that were introduced across 44 states.
Like the day after.
The day after. And in the series of years, over a quarter to almost half of them have been passed.
Interesting.
So it got introduced, 1,600 of them, but almost half of them have been passed across our country.
Interesting.
So since that gutting of that particular rule and section, there has just been, it's like Oprah. It's like, you get a voter suppression law passed. You get a voter suppression law. It's like all of these over and over and over again. So this past week, August 6th, was the 60th anniversary of that.
Yeah.
We brought in a civil rights person to help us celebrate here in Washington, who was actually sixth in line from John Lewis.
Who was this?
So this is Mr. Charles Malden, who was 17 at the time, was sixth in line behind John Lewis on that infamous march on Bloody Sunday. So he talks about what it means for that moment. So we get somebody who was there fighting for it, and then he lived to tell about it, and then now he's kind of experiencing like, what the heck just happened? You know, it's like, you guys, I just cleaned the room. Now you're gonna get it messed up again. Like, what's going on here, right? So
you gotta put this.
we have to put that on there.
We'll put it on there.
And this is him right here. That's him.
Wow.
That's 17 years
Show
old.
that,
Okay.
flip it around to show him.
So
really
that's
quickly,
17
right?
years old. Mr. Charles Malden marched on Bloody Sunday. So what this means for voting rights is we are in an era of backlash. Right? We made progress. And then as soon as and we see this time and time again with our country. There's progress, there's pushback, progress.
The pendulum swings.
The pendulum swings, right? And we are it's almost like we're at a point now where it's almost like a slingshot. Like you keep pulling us all the way back, and what's left to do but let go, and then the catapult happened. I really hope that that's what's going to happen here.
You're thinking about what happens after this.
What happens after this, because the desperation in policy, the messiness, and the aggressive tactics that people are using, like you said, the Texas approach with the redistricting right now, right? I mean, people are trying to do the whataboutism. Well, look at Illinois, and and that's what the Democrats did. And you're like, okay, well, let's take a look at what's the context here, right? Illinois didn't do it mid-season.
Sure.
And Texas, for a fact, was one of those states that had to get pre-clearance from the government in order to change their law.
Yeah. So real quick, before we get to Texas, because you talked about the pendulum swing here. You're looking how long we are?
No. Make sure that.
Okay, we're still in.
I got juice.
So you mentioned all those laws that were passed right after 2013 and Shelby v. Holder. This is how we get to the extreme gerrymandering that happens in red states now.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where you get these crazy laws that are passing before this year in Texas and Georgia, places where they're saying it's a felony to hand a water bottle out in line because these states are so gerrymandered, they can pass whatever law they want. Yes. And this is also how you get the rise of Donald Trump and MAGA is that now people can be super extreme in their views. What I said about the Overton window, it's movement to the right is because they don't have to answer to anybody. Their seats have been protected because they're super gerrymandered. There are no Democrat or moderate views or independent views that they need to listen to.
And that's the long-term effects of gerrymandering is that both sides become more extreme because those seats are protected.
Right.
And what does that do for our country? It makes us talk less to each other.
Right.
It allows parties to do whatever they want because they have no accountability.
Well, and this is where now we get to now. So where we are now is actually different than where we were from 2013 up to 2024. Where we are now is in a place where the rules have completely shifted, where it is no longer kind of normal political activity to do political gerrymandering.
Right.
Yeah.
It is, they have pushed us, you said the pendulum swung? Like the pendulum swinging outside of the clock. Like it's about to break through the wall, okay? The pendulum's about to snap.
It's like you were a kid and you were swinging so high on the swings and you start to do that like chain reaction.
I also
because
think
you're
of-
outside of that swing.
Yeah, you're about to break
It's
the
about to
swing.
break.
A wrecking ball too. Just
Yeah,
like, boom.
that's right.
Just about-
That's right. So we're not in the space anymore
Yeah.
where we can say like, oh wait, hold on, guys. Do we want this? Because in the future, we're going to be more divided. It's like there will be no future.
Yeah.
There will be no pendulum. There'll be no swinging. It'll feel like authoritarian countries where there's no like different sides and different opinions. There's the state, the people who run the country, and then there's maybe a tiny bit of dissent, but those people get disappeared. They get jailed.
Yeah,
right?
I think Pete Buttigieg said this in a Pod Save America podcast. Like, what are the markers of creeping authoritarianism? I think one of them was that we see free media, press self-censoring.
Yep. And you're already starting it.
And you're seeing this, and then institutes of higher education, the Harvards,
Yep.
the Columbias, self-censoring.
Yep.
You know, Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Yeah.
Is closing down. You know, you see these markers in society that are happening in real time, and you have to really wonder, you know, where is our country going in these next 3.5 years, where in the last 6.5, 7 months, we've already,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't think you have to wonder. Like, we know. We know exactly
sure.
where it's headed. And
But we knew this too, right? Project 2025.
Yeah.
It was there. People couldn't all read it, but it was there.
I think there was some skepticism, right? I think, and some of it, maybe it was warranted because people, what did we do on our side to communicate it?
Sure.
Well, I don't know. The point is now it's like, no, there's no debate. It is pretty black and white. He's done what he's done. It's clear to everybody. It's harming all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And so it's literally just, that is a fire. What are we going to do about it? It's on fire. It's hot to the touch. We can all see it. Everyone see the fire? Okay.
Yep.
Now it's time to put it out. And there's only one way to put out fire, and that's with water. Okay. So what Gavin Newsom is saying about these are emergency measures.
Yeah.
It really, I like that description, because emergency measures mean we're going to go super far. Okay. We're going to, we're going to take prisoners out of jail and have them fight fire. Like, we don't bring prisoners out of jail for any reason other than to like fight fires in California. And it's
the desperation of the situation.
Yeah,
right now.
that's how bad it is, right? So, if Gavin Newsom wanted to do that to like build a road or something,
Sure.
people would be like, that's freaking crazy, dude. You can't just pull people out of prison for your pet projects.
Right.
But we'll do it for a fire because we get it. We understand. That's where we are now.
Right.
We're not going to do it any other time.
All the people up there who lost their homes.
Right. They appreciate it.
They don't care who's putting out the fire.
Right.
They want the fire to put it out.
And that's why in California you see the preeminent groups that have fought for fair maps are standing down, and they're actually saying we co-sign this because the only chance we get at fair maps later is if we gerrymander now, and it feels so wrong, right? It feels ethically like it's not. We've been fighting against this for so long, and yet it's true. In order for us to have a shot at fairness in the future, we've got to fight the way they fight.
I feel like you give an inch and they'll take a mile, and
Yes.
we have to fight fire with fire. I do believe that. This is a place and time where I guess the benefits of doing that outweigh the consequences. I've been with you guys in Nevada, in Georgia, here in Washington.
How hot was it in Nevada? Wasn't it like 117?
What we did was, I remember, right? We had that person driving.
117 degrees.
We had 117 degrees. We had somebody driving, and we would pop out of the car.
Yeah.
Right. Ben was there. Others were there.
Yeah.
And we'd knock and then jump right in the car.
Yeah.
And the next house.
Our shoes would hit the pavement and start to melt, and then we would run and knock on the door and then run back.
But that's the work,
Yes.
right? That Common Power is
Yes.
doing, the grassroots, because that's the way to win elections.
It
That's
is.
That's the way to have a conversation in somebody's house about what the issues are that affect their lives.
Yep.
Right? That's the building block of democracy, right?
Yeah, and
democratic discourse.
And in an age when we are more isolated after COVID than we've ever been, when we're more polarized than we've ever been, the only way to, and when AI gives you all kinds of stuff that you can't trust online, right? Video and audio and all this stuff. Like what is truth anymore, right? And when the educational system no longer represents truth as like a single thing, and you don't have objective media and you don't have independent media,
Sure.
the person going to your door to have a conversation is like gold. This is the only thing that you're going to trust is someone face to face now. People after the 2024 election, people were asking, is door knocking matter anymore? And now I would say door knocking is the most effective way to change minds in politics, period.
I agree, because you're having an authentic conversation with somebody who is expressing their needs.
Yeah.
Right? That every day, these are the issues that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And nobody on cable television is changing that for me.
Right.
Nobody at the White House is changing that for me. And so to have that conversation, to be heard.
There you go. And
To
to
be
be heard.
heard.
To speak and to be heard. And there's some people we talk to in rural Montana and Bucks County, Pennsylvania, on the streets of suburban Arizona. Like, they had never spoken to somebody who thought
Interesting.
differently than them. And we were the first conversations they were having and planting those little seeds of doubt. So that it was worth it for us last year, and it's going to be worth it now. This is not just about the midterms. We are knocking on doors this year. Every single House race this year, U.S. House race, we're sending volunteers there to knock doors. We were there.
Are we talking about frontline candidates, people who are?
Oh yeah, we're talking about U.S. House races in Arizona. We're going to be in Texas. We're going to be in Tennessee. Where else? Am I missing a state here? I'm looking at our folks over here.
Georgia will be having us.
New Jersey.
We're going to be at the governor race in New Jersey.
We're got the Georgia race, the Senate race coming up next year.
That's next year. We're going to be everywhere next year.
Sure.
But the message is, Minnesota for the city attorney. But that gets into kind of the new candidates that we're backing in some of these city races. But the point is that you don't have to wait for the midterms. You can knock doors with us right now and set the stage. Giant elections in Virginia where we actually could regain power in Virginia, get the governors and get the state legislature, and then actually redraw those maps. They're saying there's 3 seats we can get in Virginia if we went out here in the next couple months, right? These elections are here in November. So the fight is now. The fight is now, and Common Power is going to be sending volunteers to all these states, and you could join us, and David Kim.
I can join.
Yes, David Kim will come out as well, and
Yes.
and Action Academy students are going to be leading the charge on a bunch of these states. But the point you left out is that we pay them $1,000.
Oh yeah, that's a treat because they're here. They're 10 weeks in the summer. They're spending summer with us, right? Students over there, yes, they are, and they actually. I mean, they also do action. Like there are requirements. Like that's why I said it's kind of like a democracy summer school. But at the end of the program, when they graduate, on day of graduation, they get $1,000 stipend or scholarship, whatever, because they spent a ton of time with us learning about, voting rights history, learning about what it takes to be, civically involved locally and in this country of ours. And then also they do work. They
pay your people.
We got to pay the people. They spend so many hours with us. So after they graduate from the academy, we have a lot of opportunities to pursue leadership development, civic engagement, where they can lead teams on the ground across the country. So, Ethan over here, you can't see him on camera, but was already talking to somebody about, hey, I can help lead Minnesota. I'm from there. I want this opportunity.
Love that.
And that's how we want to open these doors. I mean, like you were saying, in 1965, there were, college students leading sit-ins and also marching for voting rights. And so when we teach that aspect of history to say that young people are at the forefront of change, they're living in that democracy way longer than us. So we got to set the ground really good for them so that they know what they're constantly fighting for. So every generation, like you were saying, inherits something. So we inherit the wins and we inherit the losses, and then we continue to build on that for the democracy we want to live in.
Well,
I love that.
So and on that note too, because you mentioned Mrs. King, there's no destination that we're trying to get to, and there's no fixing this.
Sure.
Yeah, it is. It's every generation's responsibility to fight again.
Okay.
And so that's like the message to everyone is there's no calm that we're trying to get to. We're not trying to make America great again. We're trying to have people understand that we're already great, and to achieve that greatness is just a constant struggle for democracy, and it's something that we earn as a collective people.
I love that. Who are you guys most excited for in 2028?
2020.
Oh, wow.
Who are you following now? Because the candidates are getting around. They're doing their media interviews. They're out in South Carolina. They're at the events. And who speaks to you and why, I guess? Is there somebody that y'all can see?
Man, I always have this conversation about what's America ready for?
Yeah.
But in an ideal world, and if we didn't have the issues that I would love. I mean, Jasmine Crockett is my girl, my girl.
Congresswoman Crockett.
Yes, I love her. There's some really, really strong women trailblazers. I'm always an AOC fan. I mean, she completely hit the ground running when she went in.
To your point, though, we have these progressive candidates, but who do you think can win in 2028? Among who is a viable candidate in 2028?
So
wait. David just said he didn't think Jasmine Crockett was viable, I think, is what we're hearing. Dave. I'm joking.
I love
that was a
Congresswoman
gotcha. That was a gotcha. That was
in defense of David, it means that, we are not ready for a woman president, obviously, let alone a black woman for president.
No. I think, listen, I think our side should keep putting up black and brown women every single time. That's what I think. I think make America. Look, we're gonna drag America to the promised land. Okay, and a woman needs to lead. Yes, a woman needs to lead this country. And women
I
are
agree with
overdue.
that. I agree. Absolutely.
And we have such great candidates. And here's the thing about AOC. Okay, AOC was it her first week in office? She like joined a sit-in protest in front of. Oh gosh, who was the speaker? Who's our speaker?
Mike Johnson?
No. Who was
From the
Dem? Pelosi. Yes.
Pelosi.
I was like trying to remember. It feels so far away from now. She joined a protest in front of Pelosi's office. Right.
Interesting.
She was like, "I'm an organizer," and that's how far left she was. And
Is that why she's putting her chief of staff to run against Pelosi now? I'm just.
you think she sent him? I don't know. He's got his own. Free
Do you think
will.
there should be term limits
Yes, of course. I do.
at every level?
Every level. Every level. 100%. Yes, I think that being a state senator should not be a retirement program,
Oof.
and it is. It is right now. I joke about that all the time. People are like, "What are you going to do after all this?" I'm going to run for Senate, and then I can then someone can push me around the halls of Congress and tell me how to vote.
Roy Cooper? No.
Yeah,
No, he needs to
Chuck
run
Grassley
and
is
win that
91.
seat.
Chuck Grassley's 91. But so I think AOC has
Sure.
evolved. Okay, so I think AOC she's maintained her progressive bona fides.
Okay.
And she has learned how to use strategy to get votes and to not move to the middle too far, but to just build her coalition. And I think that she's going to continue to do that. I think she's a smart politician.
I think in the future we could potentially see an AOC presidency come. I think for me right now, this is why I backed Joe Biden too in 2020 was because I thought he was the most viable candidate to win the presidency. And I'm an institutionalist, but I'm somebody who believes that Democrats have to gather and support the person they think is most viable to win an election. At the end of the day, there's only one choice, right? There's you vote for a Republican or a Democrat. That's all you have on the ballot.
Yep.
And so when I tell Democrats, like, we need to get together around and rally when we have a candidate, we really need to do that. And I feel like in this last election, we saw Democrats who are frustrated about what's happening in Gaza and like they should be, but they were not able to rally behind Vice President Harris because of some of those issues.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, like, I love Wes Moore. I think what he's done on the issue of the bridge and then with the flooding recently. I can see him. He's a combat veteran.
Yeah.
He is a Rhodes Scholar. I mean, he has all the credentials. And if you read the other Wes Moore, his book, right, it creates this narrative where he could have been this guy who was in prison as much that chances of that were likely higher for him with a single parent than it was for him to go to a good school because mom prioritized education and then go to become a Rhodes Scholar and then go fight, for our country abroad and then now become the governor. And so same thing with, I think, Dreams from My Father. When I read Obama's book is what galvanized me to, try to work for this president. With personal struggles that we go through inform how we're going to change and affect policy.
Absolutely.
There's a common thread with a lot of leaders, even FDR, right?
Sure.
This man who the only president has served 4 terms, creator of the New Deal, the person who took us and helped us win in World War II, set the groundwork for what the government has done for our country for 70 years. He set that framework, but that moment for him was when he contracted polio.
Sure.
And as a human, could not get around the White House without his close friend, who happened to be black, who would have to put him in bed every single day, take him out every single day. And so when I think of him, a traitor to his class, him and Eleanor raised and born in privilege, but unless he himself had a human experience of what made him vulnerable and seen in society as somebody who's marginalized, I don't think he could have become the president that he needed to be at that time had he not gone through that.
Yeah.
And so when I
You've
think
got to
of
have
these,
a president who's gone through stuff.
yeah, and I
sure.
feel like Barack Obama is a great example of that, right?
But isn't that also there's a lot of organizations that want to train up people who want to run for office. And that's the common playbook too. It's what is it about the system you want to change? How did
Sure.
the system impact you? And trying to get that identity out of you, right? So
Sure.
I'm Filipino American, there's a lot of history here locally in Seattle of what happened with the Filipino-American story, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have to be particularly directly involved in that.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people in my community that talk about it, and
Yeah.
therefore policy should change. So if we're going to take a look at that kind of criteria, like, is this candidate the most viable candidate because whether you call it struggle, whether you call it lived in, whether you call it marginalized, disenfranchised, like, could we across the board, Democrats, Republican, actually check a box that say, what's happened in their life that can have that vulnerability moment or humanizing moment, right? That actually should be a big component as to why they run for office. Because when you hear new candidates, they're like, raised by single mom, or like, I was on Snap. You know, you had Deja Fox, who was running in District 7 in
Lived
Arizona,
experience, right?
where all she was talking about is her lived-in experience. And so she would have been a great candidate, right, to be able to advocate for people like her, which also will benefit everybody else, right? How did we get away from that?
Oh, that's a question. Well, yeah, I think so. I don't know that we've gotten away from it. Maybe at the presidential level, you're thinking. Yeah, I think that it's funny you mentioned Deja, because she had that as like, this is my lived experience. She comes from a disenfranchised community, a demographic, and yet she didn't win. She was also very good at social media.
Yeah.
I think it's because the policies have to also be there, and it's not just. Can you represent this community or demographic?
Yeah.
It's what are your ideas for people who are like you? And if you don't have policies to back it up, then you're like part of a great candidate, but you're not like everything that it takes to. There's someone at the door here, guys. Yeah, lunchtime.
We'll wrap here.
You don't have everything that it takes to be successful, and unless you also have a foundation of policies that are going to help people. And I think that's the we're now a decade in of Trump, and people talk about politics more than they ever have. It's one of the best things about this era is that everyone understands voting. People understand how many votes it takes, how many senators it takes to pass something, and like people know about culture and all this other shit that they didn't know about before. And so we're well informed, and so that also means that we just don't fall for the same bullshit. The majority of folks don't on the left. You're talking about our candidates on the left, right? And so it's going to take substance as well. You got to have the story, you got to have some experience, and you got to have the substance of policy.
You got to have a vision for what you're going to do, right?
What's possible, exactly. So it's not only anti-Trump.
I think that's good because of part of the good, a good thing that maybe happened with the first Trump presidency is that a lot of people are into politics now, right? There's a lot more people wondering what redistricting is all about, wondering what gerrymandering is all about.
We have an opinion of it now.
Yeah,
We're having
right.
a civic education course,
right? So
in real time.
now there's like self-educating that's happening. So there's self-censoring that may be happening right now that are these bigger institutions that are tied to names or whatever, but there's also self-education now. There's mis and disinformation out there as well, but even in like TikToks and like the Gen Z digital spaces, there's a lot
People
of education.
are informed. Yes,
there's a lot of
becoming more
education,
informed.
and so I think that's also a benefit of what's happening is there's a lot of curiosity now about like what is this thing happening in Texas, and even though it may not be like the best scenarios that they're trying to do their whataboutisms or equating it like, well, they did this, so therefore we do this. It's the fact that it's still in people's minds.
Which
I love that.
Which is going to get us better candidates.
Yes.
We're going to have some of the best candidates.
After Zohran Mandani's win, right? That electrified 10,000 people to sign up to run immediately.
The run for something.
Run for something. 10,000 signups. And you see these video clips of young people, not only young people, but candidates. Even his opponents now are putting all their effort into earned media, these videos, how to create the Mamdani effect. But how do you create that? I mean, he earned all his media. He went out there and did his homework. So this has been a fascinating conversation. I also want to say Pete Buttigieg, I think.
I thought you were gonna say.
I think Pete Buttigieg, the way that he speaks, I'm a forever, this is my president, but I haven't heard of a lot of people who speak to the issues of our time the way that Pete Buttigieg does.
Across the aisle.
Across
platforms too.
Right.
His box tours have been amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know, I hope we have a great president, you know, and a great candidate for president, you know, in the coming years as people do their tours. But you know, there are some good people for our side. You know.
Oh yeah, it's great. The
the
primary is
theater.
going to be. Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be like the best of the best. The primaries. Yeah, we're gonna finally get a primary that we deserve.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
Thanks.
you guys. I know it's lunchtime, so we got to go. But thanks, Charles and Larcy Douglas, who helped have create and start this phenomenal organization called Common Power. Check it out online. And if you want to be part of the Action Academy, please sign up. They need more people. And you get paid.
Yeah.
I never got paid as an intern at the White House. This is why I think AOC, because AOC helped get congressional interns paid.
See, and this is
people
why
on the ground. And I worked, I'm not going to lie, I worked 50 hours at the White House.
Wow. It's
A
amazing.
week, because I had to commute 2 hours to Reston, Virginia, and then
That's
and
amazing.
then come and work these crazy hours.
Yeah.
The only reason I could go is because people in Seattle,
Yeah.
the Marilyn Stricklands, the Paul Shins, all these people came together and helped fundraise so I can go to DC.
Pay your people.
Pay your people.
Yes.
Right? Be the change you want to see.
Yes.
You gotta-
Talented people are going to be talented. Don't let them self-censor their talent because you're not giving them what they feel like that
Yes.
value of that
That's
talent
right.
is worth. Pay them.
Yeah. Pay them.
Pay your people.
Pay David.
yo people.
Pay.
Pay me.
David deserves it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Charles. Thank you,
Always
Larcy.
see